Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight and call this meeting of the March 24th Puyallup City Council to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Adler?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Johnson?
Present.
Councilmember King?
Present.
Councilmember Gilliam?
Present.
Councilmember Castema?
Present.
Councilmember Smolko?
Present.
Mayor Whitting?
Present. I don't think anybody hasn't noticed that our royal court here this evening. Appreciate them, and we'll get to them shortly. At this time, I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Consideration of minutes. We have the minutes of the May 10th, 2026 meeting. February 10th. What did I say? May. May we approve the February 26th meeting? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes approved. So now we get to move on to our presentations and proclamations, which I will read the proclamation. Whereas the Daffodil Festival has been an established tradition for over 93 years, which fosters community pride and showcases Puyallup as an excellent place to live and visit. And whereas what originated in 1926 as a modest garden party in Sumner is now the premium springtime festival which attracts countless visitors to numerous events. And whereas the festival's events, parades, and royalty programs showcase the abilities of our young people, schools, community groups, and civic leaders, and promotes education, community pride, and volunteerism in Puyallup. And whereas the Daffodil Festival culminates with the Grand Floral Parade, which this year will be held on April 4th, following the theme Bloom Where You're Planted 2026. Whereas each year young ladies are selected from the senior class of local high schools to become members of the Daffodil Festival Royal Court. And whereas the Queen and Princesses of the Royal Court serve as goodwill ambassadors in hundreds of appearances at schools, community centers, service clubs, businesses, and organizations throughout the area. Now, therefore, I, Ned Whitting, Mayor of the City of Puyallup, do hereby name the following members of the 2026 Daffodil Royal Court as ambassadors for the City of Puyallup during their reign, and express my confidence that they will represent their schools, communities, and our city with maturity, poise, and grace. Princess Evelyn Evie Boot from Puyallup High School, Princess Ava Gardner from Emerald Ridge High School, I need help with this one. Nisia Sikenga, Chief Leshai High School, and Princess Hope Rizzo from Rogers High School. In witness whereof I have heretofore set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Puyallup to be affixed this 24th of March, 2026. Ned Whitting, Mayor of Puyallup. So we'd like to have you come up, and I'll give you your copies of the proclamation. We'll take a few photos and give you the opportunity to speak a few words if you're so inclined. I'll take the middle position. The ornaments.
that might have helped. Did everyone hear me for the first part? So I plan to study immunology on a pre-med track, and I just want to say thank you for recognizing me and my fellow princesses here today at the City Council meeting.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Princess Ava from Emerald Ridge High School. After graduating in June, I plan to go to basic training for the Army National Guard, after which I'll go to University of New Mexico to study behavioral neuroscience. Once again, I'd like to establish what Hope said. I'm so grateful for everyone here tonight, recognizing us as official ambassadors of Pierce County and Puyallup itself. And we hope to see you at the Daffodil Parade on April 4th.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Princess Evie, and I proudly represent Puyallup High School. In the fall, I plan to attend Montana State University to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering, so I'm very excited about that. And I just want to give a very big thank you to everyone here today. Growing up in Puyallup, the festival, and just everything you guys have done is very near and dear to my heart. So once again, very big thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Princess Nicia from Chief Fletcher High School, and I plan to go to Puyallup. I will be studying art and maybe collabing in a bit of writing. I just want to say thank you all for being here today, and I am proud to represent my school and city.
Okay, we'll move along. At this point, we're going to do citizen comments, and I will. We move into the less exciting parts of our meeting. So, if the court would like to adjourn at this time, you're welcome to do so. Oh, would some of you, leaders, Daffodil Parade?
We have. I think we have daffodil pins for you. Bloom Where You're Planted is. Anitra and I are co-presidents. Can I say a couple of words, sir?
You bet. Go ahead.
We've been with the Daffodil Festival for quite a while, and as things have evolved, really Puyallup is the epicenter of our parade. We are tremendously grateful for all the support that you give us, the LTAC money, the PMSA, generous donations, office space, and that we have by far our largest crowd here, and we know that looking over here to Dan and to Steve and so forth is that a lot of people, other duties is assigned, work hard to help us put on this big event and all of the related activities. And it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure for us to work with the city of Puyallup or have the city of Puyallup work with us, because it's been a tremendous amount of support and all of the dedicated people that go to keep this 93-year-old tradition alive. And the Bloom Where You're Planted theme this year is Anitra's, and it kind of gives the princesses a base for their presentations and their speeches, and also pays tribute, to when we can remember when the entire Puyallup Valley was in bloom. So thank you very much for giving us a few minutes, and I'm going to leave it up to Lisa to make sure we get pins to you.
I'm giving the girls pins so they can leave them out. So
it's up to you, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, public comments will be taken at this time in person. Will the clerk please provide the instructions for public comment?
This part of the meeting is for general citizen comments. Please reserve any public hearing testimony to that section of the agenda. The mayor will call on those who have provided their names in advance. Then the mayor will call for other citizens who wish to speak. For the record, please state your name and address or city council district in which you reside. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, not individual council members. All comments are limited to 3 minutes. The clerk will provide verbal notice when only 30 seconds remain. As a reminder, this portion of the meeting is council's opportunity to hear from the community and not a time to engage in debate. Lastly, per state law, this public comment period cannot be used to speak in support of or in opposition to a ballot measure or individual candidacy, and no such comments will be allowed.
Thank you. First on our list is Penny Thorpe.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. We are all watching on the world stage now, where we are showing the lesser side of humanity and governance. And here we have an opportunity on the local level to show good governance. And from my perspective, good governance is about we, the people. We have an opportunity to preserve and nurture our current generation. That means not doing damage, okay? No wars, no kidnappings, no putting people in prisons where they don't belong. We need to find a way to preserve and nurture the current generation in a way that can preserve and nurture future generations. I invite you to find ways within the budget or within a general resolution or ordinance to display what we say we stand for, which is diversity and inclusion. And I thank you for doing so.
Next, we'll hear from Dal Dent. Did I get that right?
First and foremost, thank you all. You've heard me. You haven't ignored me. And I'm going to be getting caught up on about a month and a half worth of my backlog. I want to thank the police department, the traffic division, and the humongous effort he pulled to get the stats that I wanted. So I started this 6 months ago, and the final conclusion is that we have a huge traffic problem in my little bubble of the world, and the police department does not have enough time, does not have enough hands to fix this. Need City Council to become proactive in traffic camera lights and speed signs with cameras. These guys need help. In 10 years, there has been a total of 2,283 tickets issued between Pioneer, Way East, 12th Avenue Southeast, 21st Southeast, 7th Avenue Southeast, and 7th. That whole little district. 3,000 tickets in 10 years is a bit excessive. There has been 396 accidents to date on Pioneer with 1 fatality. That is a bit excessive. You need those traffic lights, you need those red cameras, speed on these people. These are people that live in this area, no less. People that take their kids to Cascade Christian, Callis, Spinning, Shaw Road, Northwest Christian Academy, and the Sports Center. We need the parents or the adults driving these kids to be adults. Their actions is precipitating the younger generation to continue this type of driving. And that Sports Center is a huge hazard, absolutely huge. Every school district within Pierce County appears to go there for spring practice for baseball. It is open year-round, 7 days a week in most cases. So I thank you for your attention and looking into this.
Thank you. Tim Mellema.
Good evening, Council. Malcolm X coined the phrase, by any means necessary. His definition was the right to protect life and property when the government is unable or unwilling to do so. This phrase has been perverted and co-opted by the radical left, the No Kings, and the indivisible groups. These are people that subscribe to an ideology that nothing is off limits if it achieves their desired outcomes. The ends justify the means. Violent protests, all good. Blocking traffic, all good. Taking over sections of cities like Chaz Chop autonomous zone that was in Seattle, all good. Randomly calling conservatives racist, all good. These same people have no issue with reporting fake hate crimes. They have no problem campaigning on fake hate crimes as though they are truthful. Here in Puyallup, right when the comprehensive plan was being read and voted on, we had accusations of a heinous, heinous hate crime. Some people did not question the coincidence of this occurring right when the revisions were being passed. Some people were unwilling to let the investigation be done. Kenya Jones Lowell made claims that she received an incredibly hateful and vile letter and threatening phone calls. It was all a lie she made up. There was a very strong worded letter from then council members Adler and Dorr. Puyallup citizen Jeff Bennett said the kinds of racist and violent threats detailed so gruesomely in this letter are something we might associate with the depravities of the Deep South, yet here we are in Puyallup in 2025 seeing them unfold in our own backyard in Puyallup. Heather Cagle-Schiller, there should be a unified and unequivocal condemnation from every member of our city council and from the city itself against the racial slurs and threats of violence directed at a community member, Kenya Jones Lowell. Then citizen Lindsay Smokel. Hate thrives in silence. I am heartbroken and outraged by the violent hate-fueled threats made against Planning Commission Chair Kenya Jones Lowell and her family. The racism and misogyny have no place in our city or politics, period. And yet what I find just as disturbing is the lack of public condemnation from the majority of our city council, end quote. All these people are still active on their social media today. They didn't stop at November 4th. In their defense, they didn't know it was a Jussie Smollett Duke University situation. We all know it's fake.
30 seconds.
There have been no public comments that I've been able to come anywhere to find this. I have no idea why Puyallup's choosing not to charge her. We have our own courts. We don't need to worry about RobNet and the politically charged Pierce County. Puyallup has the ability to do it. Council, you guys were all super quiet with your comments, probably the shortest comments ever on March 10th. Maybe you were caught off guard. Maybe you didn't know about this, but it is time to speak it up about it, and it has no place in our politics. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from John Palmer.
Good evening, Council. Good to see you. John Palmer, District 2, here tonight representing Puyallup Main Street Association. Our Executive Director is off whipping up dollars, BNO dollars from the businesses while I'm here talking to you about the Main Street Credit Program tonight, as well as the parklets. First thing I want to say is I just want to applaud our continued partnership between the city and PMSA. It's a wonderful partnership, and we're just doing wonderful things downtown. And so just want to continue to see that grow. And I wanted to speak a little bit about the Main Street Credit Program. It's in your pamphlet tonight, and I think it very accurately describes how it's a $25,000 kind of allocation from the city's budget, but it leverages an additional $75,000 that would otherwise go to the state, but instead goes to the city, goes to PMSA for $100,000. So it's a wonderful leverage, wonderful program. I just wanted to give you a few things on what PMSA does with those dollars, and it just puts it all right into downtown. Roughly annually, about $30,000 on facade grants to improve our business's presence. Murals downtown, we've been spending around $20,000 a year on that. Cleaning up our downtown every year, pressure washing and graffiti removal, $10,000 and $5,000 respectively. During the holiday season, putting up the snowflakes, that's about $10,000. The holiday window dressings, that's another $5,000. And we also spend about $6,000 on the Cruise Puyallup to hire our Puyallup police to keep things safe during those events. So that's just kind of an example of where these dollars go, and it's all going into investments downtown. And for the parklets, as you probably know, PMSA each year provides the soil and the flowers to go into those parklets and maintains those, and we use B&O dollars for that as well. Speaking of parklets, thank you for adding 3 at your, and it was the last meeting before that. So I think that's great. And PMSA stands to make also the additional investment to add the furnishings, the additional planter boxes and tables and umbrellas, which will cost just as much as the parklets themselves. So we're glad to do that, though. Happy to do that. I just want to say one thing. I know you're talking about the allocation of parklets. My understanding is about 10, and it's about half and half in terms of meridian and off meridian. So be careful. I know there's a lot of energy about having them in
speakers reach 3 minutes.
Meridian, but because of that, the ones off of meridian I think are also very important. So just be careful in terms of how they allocate that, given what's the demand. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll hear from Eric Showaseed.
Hey, my name is Eric Showaseed. I'm from District 2. No Kings is awesome. 2 weeks ago, a document from an investigation into threats against Kenya was publicly deployed at a city council meeting by individuals who seemingly appear primarily during race-related debates. They declared the ex-mayor, Jim, not racist, and the city cleared. They then said that the FBI proved that Kenya sent the threat to herself. In one breath, they managed to declare the city not racist and then immediately slander a prominent black woman. No FBI report was ever received in writing. It is described as persuasive, credibly shaping, but not quoted, and it's not preserved as evidence. A verbal summary of a behavioral analysis used to justify a false reporting referral? I don't think so. That's extremely thin. So why did those two have the investigation to begin with? Who directed them to it, and why did they produce it as a defense for Jim's racist actions? That all remains unanswered, though I should point out that the council itself, on which Jim sits, was privy to the report's status. Kenya led the Equity Inclusive Charter Commission. She defended state-mandated language. She received threats. She is no longer on the Charter Commission. David DeGroot, who Kenya believed was responsible for a 9-month partisan campaign against DEI, actually verified by the report, and whom investigators felt necessary to fingerprint, now serves as the vice chair of the planning committee. That is the practical summary of the 144-page report. The person who received the threats is no longer in her position. The person she named as her primary suspect was elevated to vice chair. The mayor who stripped equity language and jeopardized state funding remains on the council. The charter with equity removed and history whitewashed was adopted. The threatening letter was never solved. Multiple prints remain unidentified. Prosecutors declined charges after finding no evidence implicating Kenya, despite attempts to redirect blame towards her. Prosecutors this does not resemble institutional competence. Institutions acting in good faith do not need third parties to defend them with police reports. They do not strip equity language from governing documents against state law. My assessment is this: Kenya received the letter. She likely knows more about its origins than she told investigators, possibly due to distrust or the process, fear of retaliation, or both. The investigators may not have been wrong that she was withholding information, but the conclusions about why she withheld it almost certainly is. And what occurred at the most recent city council meeting, not the report itself, may be the most important data point of all. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Angelin Esquardo.
Good evening, council members. My name is Angelin Izquierdo from Pierce County District 2. My topic tonight is on sexism, sexual harassment, and sexual exploitation. As Women's History Month nears to an end, I believe it is important to highlight a grave issue that more often than not leads to critical, unpredictable circumstances for victims of sexism, especially against women and girls. Our sexual harassment law in Washington State, RCW 49.60, focuses exclusively on sexual harassment in the workplace. But what about outside of where we work, where individual encounters can occur at a park, the train station, or while standing in a line at a grocery store? There are also the social disasters that occur in large group settings such as parties, dance clubs, and state fair events where extreme hostile sexism, such as sexual assault, are more than likely to ensue. Unfortunately, there are not many company policies, ordinances, resolutions, and other laws that do not factor in all of these possibilities. We need an opportunity to better report these instances when they arise with immediate results rather than deal with backlash that contains more sexism or even arguments with an officer about how big of a deal it is and wait on a decision by law enforcement on whether they see it as reportable or not. For example, online sexual exploitation focuses more on a child being uploaded onto pornography. There are adults also, not just minors, going through this issue. It is huge on the dark web and has been massive driven up to the surface web as well, exploiting our naked bodies, especially mine. I have human trafficking, cyber trafficking reports of my naked body being plastered on photos, videos, 1 to 3 minute clips, social media shorts, full-blown sex fetish websites that I had never heard of before, and much more. There's a buzzword called archives that includes this description. Please consider in the nearby future upcoming amendments, addenda, and other possibilities that help vulnerable victims and survivors of sexism speak out and report against all areas of this hate crime. Women are losing their voices by the droves. I hope that this plea stays in mind while more improvements in our laws include women, so we are not left behind. Thank you very much.
Now we'll hear from Chris Chisholm.
Chris Chisholm, District 2 resident and business owner, multi-year participant in the B&O tax credit. I really encourage all businesses in Puyallup to participate in that. It's almost like a free donation to the Puyallup Main Street Association. It's a great program. It's interesting that people are jumping to conclusions with their opinions after seeing the police report on that racist, misogynistic death threat received by our former Planning Commission member, chair. Opinions and assumptions, they're meaningless in investigations. Nothing more than starting points for where to look for evidence. As a former teacher of mine would say, assumption is the mother of all mess-ups. It's also interesting that in a recent News Tribune article about the investigation, the police chief admitted that his department's assumption from the start was that the victim was responsible, and that they say they received a corroborating opinion from the FBI without sharing who the analyst was or how they came up with that very suspicious opinion. What the chief's statement and the police report show are that they never looked for who wrote the letter, but instead spent months trying to catch the victim in lies. All the while, they left fingerprints and a palm print unidentified on the letter. It's also interesting that the writer of the letter boasts that the police will protect him and not the victim, and that seems to have happened. Further, the News Tribune article shares a quote from our mayor calling the whole thing a hoax, even though the investigation report itself states that the police could not determine who wrote the threatening letter. As the county prosecutors reiterated, there was no evidence gathered by the police as to who was responsible for the letter. The aspersions cast on the victim regarding statements she made later in the year, and now with the mayor and at least a couple other council members calling the letter a hoax, this situation is reminiscent of how abuse victims throughout history have been questioned until they mix up facts or appear to make contradictory statements, then written off. This kind of situation also causes a lack of reporting, and that's a troubling cycle for our town to be caught in. While some people also tried to spin this as some sort of attempt to influence politics last year, which it wasn't and which it didn't, the victim of this crime is being re-traumatized by the powers that be. City leadership should instead be staying neutral until determinative facts are found, and all the while reassuring citizens, residents of the city, that racism and threats of violence will be investigated without bias and never tolerated in Puyallup again. Thank you.
Okay, now we can hear from anybody that hasn't put in a slip, if anybody would like to come forward and speak. For the record, please state your name and district or address.
My name is Tracy Taylor. I live at, I just moved 622 4th Street Southwest, and I am currently the chair of the Planning Commission for the City of Puyallup. I am not here on behalf of the Planning Commission, but it is relevant in my connection to the former chair. I don't purport to know what happened, but I do know that it was handled incredibly poorly. We struggle on the Planning Commission to keep good commissioners and to find new ones, and we're lucky that we have a full commission again. But I feel that a disservice was done to the city in questioning a member of the Planning Commission instead of questioning how we could help her through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? We'll now move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a number of items that are non-controversial and which we can pass as a group unless there's a council member that feels that we should pull something off. So is there any item on this consent agenda that we need to pull off? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll move on to our public hearing. We'll have an informational presentation and public hearing on our water use efficiency plan by Public Works Director Ken Davies.
Good evening, Mayor Wedding and Council. Ken Davies, Public Works Director. Tonight I'll provide a brief overview of the city's water use efficiency plan. The program is part of the city's adopted water system plan and is already integrated into our day-to-day water utility operations. We'll start with a brief overview of this city's water use efficiency program and the associated state requirements. Then we'll cover how conservation goals are established and reported, and because those goals must include public participation, we'll conclude with a public hearing to receive input before the goals are reaffirmed. Water use efficiency planning is required for public water systems in Washington State under state law and administration code. The city's incorporated these requirements into the 2019 water system plan when it was adopted. The state program focuses on a few key areas: maintaining acceptable levels of system leakage, establishing measurable conservation goals, and ensuring the public has an opportunity to participate in the goal-setting process. The water use efficiency rule includes several ongoing requirements. Utilities must maintain a distribution system leakage rate of 10% or less, averaged over 3 years, and report that annually. Systems must also maintain full customer metering along with metering at water sources. In addition, utilities must establish measurable conservation goals and periodically review or update those goals with public input. Finally, annual reports must be submitted to the state to document the compliance and track progress. To support water efficiency, the state also requires several best management practices. These includes maintaining accurate production, metering, and program to test and replace customer meters as needed. Utilities must also implement leak detection and repair programs, track system water loss, and provide public education on water conservation. Rate structures that encourage efficient water use and evaluating opportunities for reclaimed water also encouraged. In addition to those requirements, the city has implemented several measures to further support water efficiency. Construction standards include water efficient fixtures such as low flow toilets and shower heads. Customers receive bills with usage history, which helps track consumption and identify potential leaks. Within city operations, irrigation systems are managed with computerized control to reduce unnecessary watering, and local landscape regulations promote water efficient practices. Together, these help manage demand and support long-term sustainability. Again, this program is already part of the city's adopted water system plan and ongoing operations. Tonight's presentation fulfills the state requirement to review our conservation goals and provide an opportunity for public input. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, to open the public hearing and invite comments.
Let the public hearing be open. Is there anybody that would like to comment? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Thank you. I appreciate and good work on the leak detection and the efficiency. Proud of that history. Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the donation to the Puyallup Main Street Association as part of the Main Street Tax Credit Program. And City Manager Steve Kirkley will introduce the request.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Whitting and council members. Steve Kirkley, your city manager. Former council member and current chair of the Main Street Association did an excellent job, Chair Palmer, in describing this program. This is something that has been before you all numerous years before, and it is a good return on investment for the city in that we donate the $100,000, but it's only a net $25,000 cost to us. And that $100,000 goes towards a lot of enhancements to downtown that Mr. Palmer described. And so I would encourage council to approve this donation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I saw this. As many of you may recall, the council passed this, but I was the one that teed this up many years ago. I remember they were looking for ways to maximize through local businesses the maximum amount allowable, which I think at the time was, whatever, 130,000 or whatever that was. And through some research, realized the city could do that on our dime and have a good return on investment. So I supported it. I think next year I'd love to have council take a look at. I know when we first gave it, we were kind of discussing because a lot of the things that was mentioned, they were already doing this prior to this additional $100,000, which is good. But there might be perhaps next year some added things that we might want them to take a look at to kind of earmark this funds to work towards. I'm fine with taking a year to look at that, but certainly in the time being, I think we should approve it. So I'd like to make a motion that we forward this item on the agenda as a dispersion to the Puyallup Main Street Association.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that I'm very proud of all the great work that the Puyallup Main Street Association does for our community, as well as with the Chamber. I see Chamber is also represented here tonight. But one of the main things that I'm most proud of is how both programs, but especially the PMSA, how they bring business into our local downtown businesses. Yes, I love Nashville Nights. I love anything we do with Pioneer Park. But I especially love all the little treasure hunts that you guys are starting to come up with to help bring in on special occasions. I do know that Chris Taylor from the promotions team is here tonight, but the whole dynamic of the whole team to really bring local businesses business. So I am in a huge support, and I'm not entirely sure about the whole putting stipulations on what you could do for the money. If anything, I'd like to see what we could do about raising the donation for B&O tax next year rather than try to come up with things that you have to do to get it. But we can look at that next year. So I just want to say I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Kirkley, question. I had a constituent ask me the other day, is the $100,000 that is going to go to PMSA the maximum we are allowed to donate, or could we give more if budget allows?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to look into that. We've always just been Barbara, are you looking at the finance director to see if perhaps she might know Councilmember King? I don't know.
I'm just looking at it as a cost-benefit analysis. Sure. If we were able to double our money with very minimal investment, is that possible?
It depends. Spoken like... And I'm the finance director, Barbara Lopez, finance director. I'm not the attorney. But it depends. There's a certain amount for Main Street programs across the state. Sure. And so then it depends on how much gets allocated to other ones, how many people sign up for it. And then there may be a free-for-all at the end of the year. But it's not something that we would know this early in the year. $100,000 is what we can do for right now.
Sure. I would just like to maybe propose an option just to be able to study that a little bit deeper and to find out if that's even an option for maybe next year or the year after.
I'll do a little bit of deeper digging and find out when our time frames are.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Adler.
Thank you. I see that the deputy mayor queued up to speak again. Did you want to go ahead and remark on that? And I can wait.
If that's okay, Mr. Mayor, I did want to speak to that. As I recall before, there's a maximum amount that they could apply for the B&O, so we can't just continue to go over and exceed the state maximum amount. And so I think that the city is by far the largest contributor of any other institution giving. The concern I have about doing that, I'm not opposed to doing it because I think $100,000 isn't bad, but I think the maximum at one time was like 130 or 140 or whatever. I would hate to be the only entity in businesses who invest in Main Street by being the one that carries the whole load and not getting other business to be part of it. So I would be reluctant to do that. Let's let other businesses step up and sow into the Main Street rather than us being kind of the one that is paying the whole bill. And so I think we'd share that. But that's what I understand, and I think that's where it's at now. And we're by far the significant amount. I think we're probably carrying, again, roughly maybe 80% of the load. 213. Okay, so we're about half then. Yeah. So pretty fair.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to say, certainly I support this. We are very fortunate, I want to say, we're very fortunate to have our Main Street Association, and I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the entire team, the board and staff, and all the volunteers. We often talk about how fortunate we are to have our downtown and how condensed it is, and that we are really a standard of what downtown should look like. And there's a lot of cities and towns across the state and frankly this nation that desire to look and feel like ours. And the only way that we're able to do that is because of the many partnerships that we have. And so thank you. Thank you, Main Street. Thank you to the businesses that continue to invest and participate in this B&O opportunity. But sincerely, thank you. Everything that's happening in our downtown continues to shine, and we could not be more fortunate to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to our other business. We'll have a report on the impacts of a volcanic lahar from Mount Rainier on the city of Puyallup. You were hiding there. I didn't see you. By our emergency management manager, Kirsten Hoffman.
Good evening, Mayor Whitting, council members. Kirsten Hoffman, your emergency management manager, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight to share a brief presentation on the report that we have prepared for all of you on the impacts of a lahar on the city of Puyallup. I'll be making a couple of statements about the report, and then we'll introduce some of our other lahar work group members to talk about their contributions to the report as well. So last summer of 2025, Council directed staff to conduct a study to assess the potential impacts of a volcanic lahar on the city, with a couple of focus areas to pay particular attention to as part of the report. At the same time, the City Emergency Management Division had been working with the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, and spent a day at the Cascade Volcano Observatory, which is in Vancouver, Washington, to share some information about outreach and to talk about some joint planning efforts. So this coincided quite well with this request to begin to engage with the USGS and the scientists there on the impacts of lahars for the purposes of this report. After meeting with the USGS and consulting with city staff, we determined that we could deliver the expectations of this report, and we assembled a work group to work on the report. You'll see the members of the work group on the screen. Really, really thankful and appreciative of all the contributions from these city staff, as well as a representative from Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, Chief Zane Gibson, who assisted in the work groups and then with the compilation and production of this report. This group met weekly and had a lot of time outside of that meeting to put together the report and an outline that we then proceeded to draft the report and prepare the draft that you all have had a chance to review. So the report contents is 56 pages long. There is an introduction to really focus on the scope of this report to make sure that we addressed what you had asked us to present to all of you. We have a methodology section where we've shared how we came up with the information we're sharing in the report from a GIS perspective and from an emergency management planning and preparedness perspective. And then we go into some detail about hazard assessment and impacts. We give a brief background on Mount Rainier. There's lots of information available out there about Mount Rainier, and so we wanted to give a condensed version of those hazards specific to the city in that section and talk specifically about the impacts of the city of Puyallup. We provide information on demographics of people living in the lahar zone, the risks to our land and buildings, our infrastructure and utilities at risk, and then we spend some time talking about mitigation and preparedness, the current efforts that we have in place. And then we list all of the different figures, references, and sources that we used for this report. This visual is in the report. This is a visual from the USGS. You'll commonly see it in a lot of their hazard information that they provide the public. The purpose of this report was to talk about a lahar. There's many other hazards associated with volcanoes. Of particular interest to us is a lahar due to the possibility of a no-notice lahar from Mount Rainier. This is also referred to as an unheralded lahar, or a lahar associated with non-eruptive status of Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is an active volcano. It is the most monitored volcano in the Cascade region due to all of the people who live in the valley who could be potentially impacted by a lahar. But we do, in this community, have the risk of a no-notice lahar. And so we go into that detail a bit in the report to highlight what we focused on based on the request for this report. This is another visual that's in the report, and we wanted to highlight the area of concern on Mount Rainier that can potentially impact the city of Puyallup. And you can see on this, it's that Puyallup River drainage that's on the western the western face of Mount Rainier from the Sunset Amphitheater. Due to the instability of the rock and the materials on that side of the lahar, there is the potential for a no-notice lahar to reach the city of Puyallup and the valleys that are in that river drainage. So I'd like to turn it over to Rachel Brown, planner, and she's going to talk about the GIS work and the model that we used for the report purposes.
Good evening, Rachel Brown, City Planning. So the study we present to you used a USGS model. It is a new model that was produced in 2022. It replaces an old model of lahar risk in this area. The model assumed a worst-case scenario of a lahar that affects the different drainages around the Mount Rainier, but we focused on the worst-case scenario that would affect the city of Puyallup. It's our understanding that we are likely the first jurisdiction to use this newer data for the purposes of emergency planning. So the study area used for this report, again, focused just on the city of Puyallup, the city limits. And we used only the outer boundary of that worst case scenario model to ensure we capture all the areas that would realistically be impacted in the case of this lahar event. There were some small pockets or islands that appeared within the USGS modeled lahar hazard that appeared like they were safe areas within the main lahar footprint, but we decided just to use the main footprint for the purposes of this study to make sure that we didn't give the impression that those islands were safe havens. Some of those islands are only 3 feet above the lahar area. So we just used the footprint of the lahar area for the purposes of the study, and you can see that on this map here. So the study results focused on a couple different areas. One of them was the demographics of people and workers in the lahar zone. So based on 2020 census data, Puyallup has about 42,700 residents. Roughly 17,400 of them, about 41% of Puyallup's entire population, live inside this lahar zone. Again, we also looked at workers that are working in the hazard zone. We found that about 14,800 people work within this area, which is about 44% of the city's total workforce. The industries with the largest population of workers that are occupied in the hazard zone is healthcare and social assistance, followed closely by the retail industry. Meanwhile, the industry with the largest proportion of its workers that are occupied in the lahar zone is public administration, with 81% of public administration workers citywide working inside the lahar zone. Another analysis we did was critical facilities in and outside the lahar zone. So the city's municipal code requires some extra review for certain high-risk or high-importance facilities that are proposed to be located in the lahar zone. These uses can be permitted to be built in this area, but only if they obtain an exemption for that. And to receive this exemption, the applicant must show 3 things: that they have a reliable alert system, a coordinated evacuation plan, and an ongoing training and drills to ensure that the occupants and workers are able to evacuate safely in the event of a lahar. So new facilities that are built in the lahar zone that meet these standards or definitions of a critical facility require this extra level of review. And these include essential services like police and fire stations, emergency medical facilities, major utilities, schools, daycares, large assembly spaces, and buildings with over 1,000 occupants. Hazardous facilities, which are those storing toxic or explosive materials, also fall under this category. So the map on this slide highlights known or likely facilities that the city believes meet these definitions. So I'll now invite Scott Corwin, our GS coordinator, to present on the other analysis of this report.
Thank you. I'm Scott Corwin, the GS coordinator here at the City of Puyallup in the Information Technology Department. Oh, sorry,
wrong. There we go. Transportation. So I've got one figure that I'm going to show today, but it kind of leads into a lot of the other aspects of our infrastructure and utilities. You can see there's quite a bit of impact here. Puyallup as a regional hub in terms of transportation with State Route 512, 167, and the commercial corridor through the Kent River, Green River Valley coming through here. Lahar would clearly impact the ability for transit routes to go through here, not only with the local ability to move across the valley, but also the regional transportation through. Going beyond this, we also looked at communications. And in terms of communications, the 800 megahertz public safety radio system is at the EOC in the Public Works Center, which is well up on the hill, along with the cellular locations, which we don't have it on this map. Cellular is very localized in terms of its cone of coverage, so although coverage would be limited in the valley, it would still be operational where those cell towers exist around the zone itself. And a note to the IT infrastructure for the city of Puyallup and our ability to continue to serve the public in such an event. Many of our backups, all of our backups are located in the top of the hill at the Public Works and the EOC Center there. Some redundancy of systems, but we have fiber optics that we've installed that loop the city, and when those loops cut, they still continue to communicate. So things like our Outlook communications, our email, our phone systems are hardened. I wouldn't say they're 100%, but they are hardened because of their location is outside of this zone. We've looked at stormwater and wastewater, and you see that we have roughly a 50% type of scenario here that's impacted, not impacted. Stormwater and wastewater utilities, while there may be some saving graces of them, they become difficult because just the natural flow of water, and water comes in, it's got to go out, it's got to go somewhere. So we have some things that we have to look at further in terms of how those major utilities would be handled and dealt with in such a situation. Electrical as well, but that would take the analysis of an electrical engineer that understands the grid much better than we do to make assumptions of there. Though that is what we can say about the utilities at this point in time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel and Scott. There is a map in the report that shows the publicly available vehicular and pedestrian evacuation routes, as well as our designated evacuation locations. When we talk to the public, we not only tell them that they have to walk to higher ground to get to safety, but we encourage people to become familiar with their closest evacuation location so they can arrive at a place to get access to services and then begin those processes of reunification with family community members from throughout the impacted area. So this is a screenshot of what the public can access. This is on our East Pierce Interlocal Coalition, EOC.com website, and this is an interactive dashboard. And what you're looking at here are those routes. Those are the blue lines through the Lahar zone, and those green circles are the evacuation locations. And people can zoom in on this and interact with it and really plan for what the most appropriate actions will be for themselves and for their families. So we encourage the public to become familiar with these routes, and this is a way that people can get access to that information. We are just a month out from the 2026 Lahar evacuation, the regional Lahar evacuation exercise. It is the largest in the world. We will have over 50,000 students and staff participating in this exercise with 7 jurisdictions and 6 school districts. We have a dedicated website for the exercise due to the number of partnerships and participants. It's laharexercise.com. This is a fact sheet about the exercise that's also available on that website. And we use this as a way not only to partner with schools and prepare our community, but then engage all of those other folks who are associated and affiliated with our school districts to encourage them to be prepared in the event of a Lahar as well. We are going to be welcoming the USGS team for the week of that exercise here in our region. On Saturday, April 18th, they will be at the Puyallup Public Library from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We really want to welcome the public to come and interact with them and with us to learn about Mount Rainier and the actions they can take to stay safe. This is also available on that laharexercise.com website. At the same time, we have a team from USGS coming into the region They will be presenting at 26 schools in advance of the Lahar exercise on the 23rd. And this is a resource that people who work in schools can use to get connected with the USGS to get those presentations scheduled. This is also available on our website. The final section in our report is our preparedness and mitigation report, where we talk about some of the efforts that we have done to date. We highlight the East Pierce Lahar Rapid Action Plan, which is a plan for first responders and the actions that they will take in the event of a Lahar. We also have a City Puyallup Hazard Mitigation Plan that identifies all of the hazards in the city, including volcanic. We do significant training and exercise for Lahar response. We prepare for the worst case scenario so that we are prepared for all of the other scenarios that could fall within that range of severity. Again, that epiceoc.com website is where we have information for the public. We encourage people to become familiar with vehicular and pedestrian routes. People in the valley are highly encouraged to know how to walk to safety. We collaborate with local, regional, state, and federal partners, and our development and permitting services enforces enhanced safety requirements for certain uses in the Lahar zone. So with that, we will be available for any questions about the report or our presentation.
Councilmember Adler.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you. This was a great presentation and answered a lot of my questions, and frankly, it was just a interesting read. I feel very well educated and better prepared. I would never say I am prepared, but I am better prepared to, if something were to happen, I feel better prepared, and I thank you for that. I'm going to ask this question. It's a big one. What keeps you up at night? You don't have to answer it, but I just thought I would ask the question, and I'll dovetail off of that and say, what keeps you up at night? And if you'd rather not answer that, understandable. But what would be, outside of more resources, what would be most helpful for this council to do to ensure we're continuing to be prepared to the best of our abilities?
Oh, that is such a big question. And I'm looking at my colleagues because I can already see the things kind of rattling and forming in our heads. I'm a Puyallup resident. I have 3 kids who go to schools in the valley here in Puyallup. So I take it very personally that we do this level of preparedness and planning for our community, because it just means so much to me as a parent and a community member. There's a lot of things that keep me up at night, but I really worry about people's preparedness because it's hard. It's hard to prepare. And there's a lot of people who it's hard for them to think about preparing for an emergency when they're facing lots of emergencies and issues in their daily life. And so the preparedness piece is so important, and it's scary to a lot of people. So I really hope that we can get the message out to people that it doesn't have to be this huge, significant undertaking. There's little things you can do to be prepared, and it's not a one and done, it's a process. And I think if we can really instill that in our community and through all the people who live in Puyallup, that's going to just serve us so well in the future. Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Castema.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the lines of Councilmember Adler and then your response, it was in Columbia where they had a Lahar that took place that devastated a community. And in communities in Columbia where they face such hazard, it has become somewhat part of the culture, the preparedness, to the point where people openly talk about what they would do when it would happen, and they live with that particular threat. But speaking of that particular threat, could you go through a timeline of just give me the top 5 past, starting, I guess, with the massive Lahar, I think, from maybe an eruption 5,000 years ago, roughly. But could you go through chronologically the last time we had these type of incidents here? I mean, I'm talking major, and then also minor Lahar, and then also probability of repeating itself, just so we understand the magnitude of what we're talking about here.
Yes, and I'm looking to some of my colleagues because I want them to wave at me if I get the numbers incorrect. The electron mud flow was 500 years ago, And that is the lahar that came off of Mount Rainier that scientists have not associated with a volcanic event, which is why we have that concern about the no-notice lahar, the unheralded lahar, because of that mud flow and the research that's gone into that.
And that was 1507?
500 years ago.
1507, I believe, was
Yes.
the date on that.
The Osceola mud flow was 4,500 years ago, and that was the very, very large lahar that went all the way out to the bay through Tacoma and created the wonderfully amazing valley that we now get to call home here. The scientists do talk about that 1 in 10 possibility with lahar. They are reluctant to give us any percentages or very solid numbers, but they tell us that a no-notice lahar is possible at any time. But Mount Rainier is one of the most monitored volcanoes in the world. It's the most monitored volcano in the Cascade Range, and that's because of all the people who live in the valley. So we work very closely with the USGS and those partners to learn about those systems, to learn about that level of planning, so that we will know the minute there's anything, any kind of activity in Mount Rainier, we know about that and we can engage with them to learn about potential impacts. If you recall last summer, there were some news articles about some increased earthquakes at Mount Rainier. And people got very excited, and we had lots of conversations with the USGS, and very, very quickly were given information by them about what it meant for us and what it didn't mean for us. And so we worked very, very closely with them to be apprised of any kind of incidents or emergencies that could potentially happen in Mount Rainier.
Excuse me, I don't want to preoccupy here this with questions, but I have a lot. A year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago, we had the world's largest evacuation exercise for schools. And we are now starting to do that every 2 years. Am I correct? And it's something that we plan on institutionalizing on a regular basis, that we have this. And I see that as a way of acculturating people to this hazard and getting us used to how to deal with it instead of being in fear of it. What other ideas do you have that would that also would bring about it more for? I mean, it's good to start with children. I think that's the best thing you can do. But what other ideas that you have that could help acculturate the community to just the frank fact that this may very well happen, but also there's a way to deal with it. How do we deal with that?
So we work very closely with the USGS and the Washington State Emergency Management Division on outreach. There are some new materials about the hazards of Mount Rainier that are coming out next month to correlate with the lahar evacuation exercise that we want to promote very, very broadly to the whole community so that they can be prepared and learn about their evacuation routes and learn what the community needs to do to be ready for that. We have a hazard mitigation plan that identifies some of our strategies that we would like to put in place to mitigate the impacts of volcanic events in the city. So there's a list of those strategies in that hazard mitigation plan. And then we as a city, we have a multi-year emergency work plan, which includes outreach and preparedness efforts, which we are available, and we have the staffing and the resources to go out and really provide education to our community here in Puyallup so that we can get that community culture of preparedness and really build upon the efforts that we've started at the school level. And now we have students who've been doing this since 2019 in Puyallup. So you think about that, repetitive practice every couple of years, and if they've had a scientist come into their classroom and talk about Mount Rainier, or they've seen some of our presentations at the library or had a chance to interact with the USGS, it adds to that culture of preparedness, which is really going to be helpful for us, and not just a lahar emergency situation, but all emergency situations.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question regarding our beloved Good Samaritan Hospital. You bowed your head on me on that one. Do we have any emergency preparedness or mitigation plans to help protect said hospital or the entry thereof from surrounding streets and or infrastructure regarding the hospital, such as power and all of those things. I know they have some obvious generators and such, but have those discussions ever been had with them, and do they even have any plans in place on the emergency side? Because obviously there's going to be many people visiting there in the unfortunate situation of this occurrence, but just wondering if those conversations have been had yet.
Yes. The conversations have been had. They are involved in our planning. We have liaisons from the hospital who participate as part of our emergency operations center team. And when we do this exercise, we usually have some level of planning and interaction with them.
Okay.
As part of the exercise. They have an emergency management committee. That committee does the emergency planning for the hospital, including evacuation planning, LAHAR planning. And that's something that I would want to get more information from them to be able to adequately respond to your question.
Sure.
But we do work with them. We have to work with them. We know in the event of a LAHAR that they are going to be very quickly overwhelmed. So there's some work to be done to make sure that we can ensure those types of resources and those critical infrastructure facilities can continue to function.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Smolko.
Good evening. Let's see. So I wanted to quote a report that was done by the Puyallup Tribe of Indians from 2017 to 2022. They did their all-hazard mitigation plan, and they said, I'm hoping this is maybe helpful to Council Member Castema as well as all of us. They have some pretty specific dates as far as which kinds of LAHARs, and there's so many more that I had no idea. And they have them, they've been here for a long time, to put it mildly, and they have some pretty specific scientific dates for how long between certain things. And one of the things that they said was the one you mentioned, Councilmember Castema, in Armero in Colombia in 1985, they said is relatively small compared to some of the ones that have descended Mount Rainier. The LAHAR from the volcano Nevado del Ruiz killed over 23,000 people and injured about 5,000. In this case, the main wave of mud that demolished the town ranged in depth from 6.5 to 16 feet. There could be a similar percentage of injured and killed in a LAHAR from Mount Rainier. The method of destruction, burying entire communities in a flow of dense mud, does not allow most people caught in it a chance of survival. So I have a few questions. Mm-hmm. First, since the mud will in many cases be too deep to drive or walk through directly, that indicates that helicopter rescues will be necessary. Is that a part of our planning for making sure we can get access to those? There will be tons of people stranded on roofs.
It is part of the planning. We've had discussions with our state and national partners on that. One of the challenges we have is during a volcanic incident, typically air assets can't be used, like helicopters, because of the damage from anything coming from the mountain. So we advise people to make a plan to get to safety, because we don't know how long it's going to take. If there are people in the LAHAR zone who somehow need assistance, we don't know how long it's going to take to get that assistance to them.
A lot of those people might be on the hospital roofs. Who knows? Hopefully not. Also, security concerns is something that they talk a lot about in the Puyallup mitigation plan, because people get very protective of their property. Mm-hmm. And if they don't know that it's going to be protected while they're gone, a lot of people are hesitant to leave, especially since that warning can come hours, if not days, before there is actually a LAHAR. And human nature tends to be, oh, yeah, right, okay, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And then also they come back too soon because of fear for their property. And so that was a piece that I was curious to know more about, too, as far as just protecting. Obviously, we're going to have bigger fish to fry, but I think that since that's a reason so many people stay and come back early, that we should consider how are we going to ensure people that, if we can, that property will be as protected as it can be.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. And that's where that's where the trusted messengers are so important. Yeah. So having Chief Engel and his team part of the planning and part of the discussions, so we can assure the public that when we tell them it's time to go, we want to minimize milling, which is that concept where people go, is this real? Let me call my neighbor and ask them what they think. Let me call this person and see what they think. We have to reduce that. So it's through those trusted relationships and through that outreach to the public that we can really try to instill that urgency of this is what a lahar can do, and you have to go when you're notified, either by the outdoor warning system or through a wireless emergency alert on your phone. There's no delay. You have to go.
Okay, I have two more. I hope that's okay. They should be quick. First, is there any hazard disclosure requirement for home buyers or renters in these inundation zones?
That's a question I'm looking at our planning team for. Rachel, can you speak to that one?
Rachel Brown, City Planning. Hi. So we do require during a subdivision, if the property is within a lahar zone, that a notation be put on the face of the plat. The object of that being that future purchasers will be notified. I don't know that renters are notified or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you. And my last one is, how will the city reach non-English speaking residents, people with disabilities, and those without smartphones in a lahar warning?
Thank you for asking that question. It's a real challenge to reach people who don't have access to information, who have limited English proficiency speaking skills. We really try to partner with our community agencies and our trusted partners in the schools. We're very fortunate here in the Puyallup School District to have a couple of schools that have Spanish immersion programs. My child's a student in one of those programs, working with those partners and those trusted community members so that we can instill that trust and instill that confidence and make sure that we're explaining to people the hazard of a lahar so that they can receive that warning when it comes to them in a way that they can take action.
Is the smartphone messaging in multiple languages? Like
yes.
If we did our top 5 or
yes,
whatever?
There is. So when a wireless emergency alert, that's the one that you get on your phone that's often an amber alert or a silver alert. We also can send those out through Genesis Alert, which is our public alerting system that powers Puyallup alerts. And when those go out, we can send them out in English and in Spanish.
Perfect.
And so that comes through that way. Other languages are also available. If you go to Puyallup Alerts, which is our website, you can select some different languages, and you also can register in your preferred language.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Just a couple of things. We've talked about the no notice and the notice lahars. So one is the result of volcanic action. The other is landslides, et cetera, up on the mountain. So the response to those are two different, very different. So the no notice lahar, the sirens goes off. Nobody's been talking about it. It goes off. The alerts go off. We got to get out of town, and we got to get out of town now. So from the time that the lahar, let's just walk through the sequence of events that takes place when such an event occurs. And again, those kind of events occur all the time, correct? There's something going on the mountain. There's a landslide that triggers some of your sensors, and correct?
Mud flows on Mount Rainier are common, and they are referred to as mud flows as long as they stay in the park. Right? Yes, as long as they behave. So they do happen. We actually receive, I'd say, a couple times a year in the summer. We receive notification from the National Park Service. Scott Beeson is the National Park geologist at Mount Rainier, and he has designed a system of notification for some of those activities on the mountain, and we will get notified that there's some mud flow activity on Mount Rainier.
So you can have a small mud flow, or you can have a big lahar, and they're going to affect some of your sensors the same way. So there's a decision-making process along the way that determines the nature and the magnitude of the event. So there's a thought process going on in there. How much time is that likely to take?
So it depends. The USGS is in charge of the equipment that's on Mount Rainier and that monitors all of the different drainages for potential lahars. They have a way that they are notified when any of those systems are triggered, and then they have a confirmation discussion amongst their scientists to determine the nature of the trigger, the magnitude, and if this has the potential to be a significant lahar. After that, then they have a phone call with the Washington State Emergency Management Division Alert and Warning Center and let them know that there is the potential of a lahar on Mount Rainier. That is then also confirmed with South Sound 911 and Pierce County Department of Emergency Management. And then at that point, they will determine if they need to signal via the outdoor warning system. So there's multiple points of confirmation that have to happen before the public is notified via the outdoor warning system or wireless emergency alerts on their smartphones.
So we've got a clock running as these discussions are taking place. So how long is the clock and how long are the discussions expected to take? I know you can't really answer. Can you estimate how long it would take the lahar to get here if it was a...
So we do have a map on lahar arrival times. So that is in the report. So you can see that. That does not take into consideration the timing of notification. So for the notification timing, we don't have a role in that. That's the USGS and the Washington State Emergency Management Division. So I would have to defer to them to ask them about the timing of those notifications to share with our community.
So as we look at that report and we see the arrival times, we need to discount the amount of time we have. And again, for those no-notice lahars, when we hear the siren, we need to go.
Yes.
Okay, so enough on that subject. I just wanted to reinforce the need for that. The second is the volcanic lahars. So I admit I'm old enough to remember Mount St. Helens going off. At that time, the volcano's rumbling, and then there comes a decision point. When do we evacuate? And let me just expostulate a little bit here. What's the appropriate time in which to do an evacuation? And if you do an evacuation and nothing happens, was that a false alarm? And I would advance the theory that if there's a 10% chance of a lahar killing a lot of people, an evacuation becomes necessary. And if nothing happens, that wasn't a false alarm. That was a precautionary measure. And so if we ever get into this situation, there's those that are skeptical that it's coming, and then when they've evacuated and they come back, oh, that was a false alarm. Well, I don't think it is a false alarm, and I just want to make that statement because I think it's inherent on public officials to make these really tough calls. And I don't ever want to be in a position where I have to make one of those calls. Do I evacuate? Do I not evacuate? Both of those have very serious repercussions. So I just wanted to state that. Appreciate your bearing with me. Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going to circle back, and I apologize if you mentioned this. I was reading your very thorough report that I have here. So if it was mentioned, I apologize, but to circle back on Councilmember Smoko's comments regarding receiving information for those Spanish-speaking residents that are here. We do have our big, beautiful lahar speakers throughout and on top of our building that they also speak in Spanish as well?
Correct.
So,
yes, we can have audible messages on those. The monthly test, you'll hear that monthly test repeated in English and in Spanish.
Because I remember hearing those quite often every time And first Monday of the month, yeah.
At noon.
At noon. No, I just want to say thank you for the extensive work that you and your team have done to put this all together to make our citizens more informed, and looking forward to the Lahar drill as well, and appreciate your efforts in making sure that all of our citizens and kiddos in the area are able to understand the significance behind this. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further comments. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Zane. Zane's the quiet guy behind the scenes.
Thank you.
I don't guess I really can accuse him of being the quiet, timid guy, can I? Okay, we'll move on ahead. We've got an information update on the America 250 celebration and the 2026 World Cup by our Public Affairs Officer, Eric Johnson.
Okay, good evening, Council and Mayor. Eric Johnson, Public Affairs Officer, and tonight I will be giving you an update on America 250 and World Cup. So for tonight's agenda is actually split into two parts. So part one, I'll talk about America 250, and then the second part will be dedicated to World Cup. And then tonight I have Allison Schaefer from the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce, who's available to answer any follow-up questions from you all. And then I also have Dean Burke from Visit Tacoma Pierce County, who is online via Zoom, who will also give an update on World Cup for us. So for America 250, as you all probably know, America 250 is the celebration of America's, and let me get this right, semi-quincentennial, this July 4th. Congress in 2016 established a commission and a nonprofit that oversees the nationwide rollout of this big celebration. And in the state of Washington, the Washington State Historical Society has hired a state coordinator to meet with cities around the state to coordinate different planned events. There's also a state website called america250wa.org where participating cities are adding their events to their event calendar. City staff, along with then Mayor Castema, who spearheaded this endeavor last year, held several meetings in 2025 with community partners to discuss various ideas and ways that Puyallup can celebrate this historic moment. So during these meetings, these series of meetings, it was agreed that the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce should be the administrator for an event on July 4th. Since they are already in charge of Red, White, and Kaboom, which is held on July 3rd every year, it made sense from an operations and logistics standpoint to add this event to their program. I'll just wait a second. Okay. So staff met with the chamber in 2025 and currently to come up with an event proposal, which I have an overview at a high level on the next slide. So the event proposal at a very high level, obviously it would be held on July 4th, 2026 in Pioneer Park from approximately 4 to 7 p.m. That timing is very critical because we want to make sure that it does not conflict with the farmers market, which gets over earlier that afternoon. And would include such things as live music, food vendors, a beer garden, a patriotic car cruise downtown utilizing the Cruise Puyallup group, and a reading of the Declaration of Independence from the Puyallup VFW, among many other things. The cost to host this event by the Chamber, they quote us as $81,398 to host this event, and the funding would be funded by the city-initiated LTAC funds. So next steps, the LTAC Commission actually held a special meeting earlier this afternoon to provide comment on this. So by code, whenever there is a LTAC proposal that comes before us, they have to provide comment on it. So that comment period has occurred this afternoon, and we are now tonight seeking Council's approval for usage of those LTAC funds. If approved, staff will amend its existing contract with the Chamber for Red, White, and Kaboom to include this event. And then once the contract is signed, the city will coordinate regular meetings with the Chamber to make sure that the event is on track and that community partners such as PMSA and the VFW are included in those meetings.
Can I pause just a second?
Yep.
We did have our LTAC meeting this afternoon, and Dean, would you like to comment on this?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, and as it pertained to LTAC specifically, the general consensus of the group was they were in favor of the 250 event at large, but not in support of it through the use of LTAC funds specifically, because of the details and nature of the one-day component of it and such. But otherwise was, supportive. It's an important event and it's good. Just it wasn't a right candidate for LTAC funds. The group that is just a comment period for the group. They're not voting on that, so I don't know what happens within city policy from there on it. But that was the initial feedback today.
And if I can expand on that a little bit, looking at the hotel utilization over the 4th of July, it kind of crashes because of the nature of the 4th of July event. Does not attract people in from out of town. Most people want to go home and celebrate with their families, I guess. So it's not a heads and beds kind of generating activity, which was the basis of the statement there. So I just wanted to bring that forward. Let's go ahead and we'd already got to the questions portion. Yep. Are you done with your presentation?
Yep, I will pause here, and then, yep, if council wants to discuss, yep, perfect.
Okay, Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious why the event is only going from 4 to 7, and if there was any talk of partnering with the Washington State Fair. Like I originally thought there was some partnership going to where we could make it a bigger event to where we would have heads and beds. Like this was supposed to be something where we were bringing people in from all over to celebrate here in Puyallup. So I think that's the original intent and why we were discussing pulling these funds from LTAC, because we were going to make it a much bigger event than what I see the presentation here today.
Yeah, I know that we had some initial meetings with the fair. They were included in the community partners meetings, and I think, I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but they said that, they are okay with the chamber hosting this just because they do the Red, White, and Kaboom event at the fair, and so they feel like they're already gaining so much from that event. So to move it to Pioneer Park, they felt like that was more of like, like equal distribution. Okay, like on the 3rd of July, the event, the Red, White, and Kaboom event is held at the fair, and then this event could be held downtown.
So why can't we merge the two and have heads and beds that way?
Again, I can't speak to that. I know that the fair had agreed that they were going to let the chamber host this event in downtown.
Okay, so I'm curious why we're having the Red, White, Kaboom and the 250. To me, it should be all one event. I see Allison raising her hand.
Allison, you want to come up?
I will say specifically, we were told that the city wanted to have it on the 4th of July, and the fair cannot have the fireworks on the 4th of July just because there's a dog show and their own contracts that are there that day. That there was a conflicting with the events, so they really wanted the city really wanted to have it on the 4th of July. So having it on the 4th of July means we had to move it here.
Okay.
Open discussion, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Castema.
Thank you. Allison, if you don't mind coming back. Eric, please stay there. My understanding was, when we brought this together, we brought together probably 10 plus different organizations in the community, and they all had different events taking place on the 4th of July, the Meeker Mansion, many of the veterans groups, all of that. And the idea was we needed somebody to organize all of that, including the cruise. That is going to be quite a regional cruise. And talking about bringing people to Puyallup, this is going to be the mother of all cruises on the 4th of July in Puyallup, and you'll be seeing people come from all over the region. The idea was that the downtown would be, the Main Street had at that time said that they would make sure all the shops had all the kind of paraphernalia, memorabilia, patriotic type of motif downtown. They would take care of that. You had the VFW, the American Legion, saying they would get military involved, maybe even having some static displays of military items, etc. But someone had to bring all that together, and the idea was the chamber would do that. So I'm having a little difficult understanding how now. Did I get that correct? It's for 4 to 7. Is
the reason we moved that time is we wanted to be good community partners with Main Street. So
I understand that, but you're not going to pack all of those different organizations. So that's going to require, I think you're talking about what you'll be doing out there with the band, reading of the Constitution, things of that sort, 4 to 7. But that's not what this contract is about. It's about coordinating everything. Yes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Cruise Puyallup is on board.
Yep.
So this is a lot more than just a 4 to 7 activity. That's what this is. I mean,
we can't have the pavilion before that due to the farmers market.
Right.
They need load out time. So even though we could stage and we can get all of our vendors, or some of our vendors from Red, White, and Kaboom will already be vendors, so some of them will stay put. So that will help with transition times.
But you will be, for example, I heard of the cruise, maybe when they're done with the cruise, they go over and they park on the Festival Street on nights, okay? You will coordinate that, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. And that will take place in the morning, the cruise, correct?
The cruise will take place in the evening.
Oh, in the evening. Okay. Well, whatever the logistics are, I just have to know that somebody is doing all of that and coordinating all those groups that want to be involved.
Yep.
So I hope that, does that help?
Well, I thought this was going to be a really big celebration, and it sounds like it's going to be a smaller celebration. And that's why we were talking LTAC funds for heads and beds, because it was going to be a bigger gathering of lots of activity, more than 3 hours worth. That was my understanding.
Well, no, is that the case?
We're going to try as much as we can to also incorporate some things on the 3rd of July. That program is basically kind of built in already. Those LTAC funds were approved way back, and that whole program was built out before we even really knew exactly what the city wanted the 250th program to look like. So it's kind of an addition.
So because of farmers market, you're limiting this to 3 hours?
Yes.
In the park. In the park.
In the park part. Yeah. Okay. Then what else takes place every place else?
So the cruise, I mean, we've talked with Cruise Puyallup, and the cruise, they definitely want to be a part of it. They want to try to implement the car show that was happening at Red, White, and Kaboom into the 4th of July day. So we would have to figure out the where and the when. So, but they were really waiting for this meeting to happen so that they knew what kind of timing and what kind of areas they could utilize in order to have the Cruise Puyallup, whether it would be all day, car show at the beginning, car show at the end, so we're all kind of just waiting to see what flushes out on what happens with the contract. But we have worked with Main Street, and we have talked to the farmers market, and we want to be good stewards of all the vendors there. They're all going to be invited to stay and be a part of it. But again, there might be a lot of transition at the 2 o'clock hour.
And then in addition to that, we're working with the VFW. I understand that, they want to do kind of a separate music program that we can incorporate into the larger whole of that. So we'll make sure that they're a part of that.
Well, I'll bow out here and I'll let someone else ask questions. I'm a little concerned that, again, we're letting the farmers market, I think you need to be fair, et cetera, but not to the point where we have nothing going on early in this is a lot for us to pay for you to coordinate.
Correct.
Okay? And I think, we want more coordination in this 3 hours.
Well, and I agree with that. So part of what we've been holding back on with having these discussions is not necessarily even knowing this is going to be approved, and so not being able to go out and get all the vendors, because then there's gossip and it becomes uncoordinated. So we were hoping that this was going to be kind of decided on earlier so that we could really have more planning time involved. But we're open to discussions.
If we approve this, when can we see the first agenda from you?
I would say within 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I apologize. Not my business. I'm not a mayor. Sorry.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm kind of having a little bit of a heartburn over this at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 101 days until this shindig kicks off.
And we've been talking about it for a year.
Yep.
Uh-huh. And so I'm a little perplexed at the moment. And I appreciate the collaboration that you're willing to have with Main Street and be able to bring in and allow the vendors to stay that are part of the farmers market. Has there been any discussion with the farmers market and or PMSA to start in conjunction with them and partner with them and begin earlier than the 4 to 7? Because that's going to be a real big, not just with me, that's going to be big heartburn with a lot of constituents as well, to be able to not start earlier and just have a 3-hour event for $80-some thousand. That's hard.
I absolutely agree. So I would say when this was approached the chamber to take the planning, my first concern was our community partners. How is this going to affect the businesses? How is this going to affect the farmers market? So Julie and I started having conversations, I think went back in November or December, on what that would look like. I do know that everybody's loading out starting around 2, and we want to give everybody a certain amount of time. The only place that we could figure out where we could have the celebration on the 4th, when it was wanted to have on the 4th, was in this footprint where the market is. And we did not want to take away and just have the chamber just take over and the city take over the farmers market the day. It's going to be a big farmers market. It's a Saturday on the 4th of July. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Is there any way, is there conversations to coexist the entire day?
I mean, we're happy to have those conversations, and I think Julie is also. Again, we didn't want to be presumptuous that this was even going to be approved or what would be approved. There's been a lot of conversations on how this would flush out or if it would flush out. And so I think we're all open to that. We're also conscientious of our first responders and how busy of a day that is for them. But we're open to that. I think Julie's open to that. We're all open to that. I think what we need to be conscientious of is the footprint. If it's a big farmers market and they take up the bulk of the space, there's nowhere to expand to. So if we want to co-brand it or something, potentially, but there may not be room to go. There may not be any breathing room.
Have there been discussions similar to Meeker Days where we could, I wouldn't suggest obviously
shutting the streets?
Not Meridian. Got to have Meridian for the cruise, I get it. But maybe Pioneer here on the west side of Pioneer and kind of expand out even to Main Street one more block also. And kind of push out just kind of like how we do for Meeker Days.
The car show would love that.
We can absolutely, broaden the discussion on what the planning looks like. We've been holding back to really want to push it forward until we knew that this was even going to happen.
Well,
I think that would be fabulous. Yeah. I think that would make the car show piece earlier and easier to logistically pull off.
I will jump in, and I know that you're going to talk about World Cup. I will also let everybody know that this is going to happen right during World Cup. So we are going to have a lot more visitors that are coming down. We can actually drive the traffic from World Cup, that people are going into Tacoma, and try to attract them more here. It's a lifetime opportunity to get that attract that World Cup audience too. We don't know what that looks like. We've been having conversations with World Cup for once a month now for almost a year, so we don't know what that looks like. But that we have to think about that in terms of costs for vendors, for us just to attract or to get somebody during this time. Not only is it the 4th of July, but we are competing with World Cup vendors, so it does raise the price significantly for us to just sign people on.
And giving us heartburn on timing also.
Well, I will supply the Red Bull, and you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
So let me jump in here. We have a hard deadline for our executive session at 8:30. So I'm kind of the opinion that there's planning to be done. So what do we need to do tonight to get the ball rolling here?
Yeah. So what we would like to hear from council tonight is a motion to approve the amount, which was, I believe, $81,398 to be given to the chamber so that they can host this event and organize this.
Okay, so we don't have a motion on the table yet. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second with some discussion.
Right. As the maker of the motion, I'd like to be able to speak to it.
Okay. And again, remembering that we've got a hard deadline.
This is, I want to make this retroactive all the way back to last October, okay? So that gives you an idea of how much work you have to do in the next 100 days. You have to do everything from last October, okay, in 100 days. I think it's probably minor to say Red Bull will get you through this, okay? As Councilmember King mentioned, there's a lot of work to do. And I'm not putting this on you, okay? Because I think you've been waiting for this. I'm very sorry that logistically it's taken so long for us to get here. But I would only ask, are you willing to take that on? Because we're taking a chance. If you would have come to us last October, I would have allocated you that much money. But that would have been for a lot longer time of preparation. So it's going to be egg on our face if you don't pull this off. And it's for more than just 3 hours, from 4 to 7. It's for the whole day. It's coordinating all the parties. If Meeker Mansion has something, they want to have a breakfast feed. That's got to be part of it. If the cruise wants to do it in the morning, that's got to be part of it. If VFW wants to get a static Black Hawk helicopter to put in the park, you got to do that. Okay? Are you okay with this?
This is what we do every day. So I'll say we have Bad Cat Marketing here as our agency and planner to contract with. So yes.
All right. Well, understanding the time crunch, I will now, the person who seconded that was Renee Gilliam. I guess that would give her second shot, but I will vote for this.
Yeah, I'm on the same team there, same train of thought. We'd love to see more than 3 hours worth. And we believe in you, Allison. You're amazing. I hope it don't feel like this all of a sudden, holy smokes, but at the same time, we were expecting a lot more than what was shared tonight.
Yeah.
So in 2 weeks, if you can, love to see, hear more and kind of what the agenda is. And we really would love to see an all-day celebration.
Can I ask council a question?
Yeah,
sure.
As the logistics coordinator, if the VFW or the Meeker Mansion or I don't worry about Main Street as much because we've had a lot of conversations with them. But if everybody wants to do their own thing and doesn't want this to be drilled into the cities, then what's your expectations around that? If they say, well, yes, we're going to host it and yes, we're going to play fair with each other, but we don't want to whether it's co-market or co-coalesce the events. How does
when would anybody say that? Because the whole point is to promote what's going on.
I've been doing events for 25 years, and you would be surprised on what
I thought there was already conversation with all the different groups.
Yes, and I let me just say this: if you go to them and say, we're going to charge you $10,000 a piece,
we wouldn't charge them anything if they're doing their own stuff. But if I'm just,
I can't imagine them not. They all came to the table, said they wanted to coordinate. The only problem is we didn't have a coordinator.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. We've just been holding back because we haven't known if this is a green light. So I wish that we would actually have had a little bit more of we think we're going to get there. We've just been waiting to see what we can and can't do. So.
If you're confident they'll come to the table, we'll make it happen.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've enjoyed this dialogue. It's kind of the formation of the Iron Crucible to kind of get to a great outcome. I do think some comments that were made. I'm going to go ahead and take advocacy and defend the chamber because I think that they were dealt some conditions they couldn't control. They wanted to collaborate with the fair, but the fair couldn't do it because they had the dog thing going on, so they were limited on being able to do it there on the 4th. So I think they probably wanted to collaborate maybe more with the Pioneer Park and the Pavilion, but the Main Street's already kind of got that locked up for those hours, and so they were kind of limited. So the leftover time they have left over is this window of time. So I would like to think, colleagues, that we empower them to open up the city. I think the Meeker Day deal, we empower them to close streets up and give them more avenue and more places. They can begin this process up and down Meridian, wherever. They can utilize, the Pioneer Park when that opens up at 4, but there's no reason that they couldn't open up and do like the Meeker Days.
That would make it much easier.
And create the environment that's seamless. In other words, people will still go to the market, but if the streets are closed off in some of the areas and there's things and displays going on, vendors, I think it creates this kind of synergy. So I'd like to see us open it up and empower them to have more than just a limited space at the pavilion because it's already been taken. They can't use the fair. Let's open it up and create a festival that would tie in some streets and bands or whatever you want to do, and let this be a festival of fun. Yeah. And even if that meant, I'll even be willing to say this, I don't know if they can pull it off, but if it required more funding to do that and open this right up into the streets, I'd be looking to find some more funding for them.
Well, and I do want to say too, we've already talked to some bands and some food trucks, and we've been trying to plant seeds knowing that we'd be time crunched. It's expensive to have a 4th of July Saturday, so it hasn't been where a band usually would charge us $5,000, they might be charging us $8,000 because of the time and day. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd be open to expanding, and if that means more funding to get that, I'd be open to do it. But let's empower them to have more space than just the limited amount they're left over with. So,
Councilmember Smallcoat.
Thank you, Mayor Whiting. I was not here in October, so first of all, I have zero doubt that you ladies are capable, and your team and your squad are capable of pulling off miracles. That I've seen just little bits and snippets as I've joined council. But I have some ignorant questions. Number one, as I understand LTAC, who filed the application for LTAC funds on behalf of this event? Because that application comes with some stipulations.
The city did.
Okay. Yeah. So in that should have answered the questions of estimated overnight stay numbers, how many people are coming from 50 miles plus away, how many people out of state or residents, that whole demographic breakdown that's in there, I assume?
We don't have any of that information specifically because quite frankly, it's hard to tell at this point because of World Cup going on and kind of all the other things. We'll talk a little bit more about World Cup in just a minute about kind of what Travel Tacoma is seeing. But as far as data and things of that nature, that was not included in the proposal.
I thought that was part of the application, so maybe that's just a point of ignorance for me. And then my last question really is just $81,398. I heard $8,000 for a band. I don't know what else that pays for. Could somebody educate me on that?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I got you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
and if
problem.
that's something that we can speed through and just say, I can give you a copy, Smolko, that'd be fine.
And we can give you a copy. So high level security, first responders, any, for some veterans stuff, some bands, a beer garden, entertainment, bars, bands, sound, AV, food, beverage, park usage, licensing and permitting, fire city, all that, extra bathrooms, extra janitorial, event planning, and then staffing fees for
festival stuff. Correct. Yeah. Got it.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I call a question.
Thank you. Do we want to include an amendment to the question about opening up side streets? Because I think that's a critical decision at this point. Would you like to offer such an amendment?
I would not, and I'll tell you why. That could add a lot of expenses. Let's hear their proposal back in 2 weeks. But if that could be a potential, but let them investigate it, but I wouldn't mandate it. I think that they will investigate that if you ask them.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, that would be fabulous because right now where the car show would usually take place, which was Pioneer Park's library's parking lot, that usually is now held for food trucks during the farmers market. So we were trying to figure out where to move the car show to. And so we would love to have the car show during the market time. So that's where we would probably utilize the street space. And then we could also potentially have additional vendors if there's a lot of vendors that want to come over from Red, White, and Kaboom and make it a 2-day thing.
Okay, so the question has been called I'm not sure what procedures are here. Do we need an approval for the called motion?
I don't hear an objection.
Can I clarify what's on the floor so that our chamber knows what we're asking?
That was great.
So quickly, thank you. We want to see this. We need you to bring back a presentation in 2 weeks on what you got.
Okay.
And then if at that time we need that extra street closure for permitting and it costs more money, we need you to do an analysis so that we can potentially approve that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page now.
Yeah, more policing stuff, right?
Okay, so the motion has been called. The motion, as I understand, you want to restate your motion?
Yes, approve to the chamber to plan the celebration 250 for the city of Puyallup by organizing all the different various parties in downtown Puyallup for $81,398, and approve that. Vote to approve it.
And we have a second for that motion?
Yes.
Yes, second.
Motion has been called. Again, I didn't get a procedure. City Attorney?
Well, if it's truly a call to question, you're going to cut off debate. There needs to be a second. There's no debate on the motion, and you vote whether to call the question or not. A majority you go straight to vote without further discussion.
Okay, so we've got a motion to terminate debate. Do I hear a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes. So we'll move on to the motion to approve the original motions. So we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so that brings us to a stopping point. We've got a deadline, so we will go into executive session at this point in time, and we will be coming back after to wrap up our agenda after the executive session. We're into recess.
Mayor, Mayor, can you just read the announcement for the purpose of the executive session? Thank you.
The purpose of the executive session, the council will now recess into executive session to consider, to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against a public official or employee. The executive session is expected to last 30 minutes.
The Puyallup City Clerk notes the time is 8:58 p.m. and Mayor Whitting has extended the executive session an additional 15 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, they're ready.
Back from executive session, We're back from executive session. The meeting is called to order. We have decided to push the World Cup presentation and move on to item 7C, allocation of additional parklets. City Clerk Dan Vessels will introduce the request.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a follow-up to the last presentation we had on the parklets with council. Earlier today, the LTAC committee met and was provided the ability to make comments on the request for LTAC funds to build 3 additional parklets. The LTAC committee indicated they thought they had no comments regarding the request, but they thought the parklet program was beneficial to the downtown businesses. So today we're here to get direction from council on the disbursement of the parklets. At our last presentation, there was a question as to whether council wanted to have a specific number on Meridian or off Meridian. And then once that decision is made and direction is provided by council, I just have a follow-up question on that.
Okay, so again, just to restate, we approved the 3 additional parklets in a previous meeting, so we have 10 parklets to allocate. The question before us, as I understand it, we've had the is auction the right word? Lottery.
We have not drawn the lottery yet. The lottery closed last Friday at midnight. I'm waiting to complete the lottery until I receive direction from council tonight on the allocation.
So we have 10 applications, as I understand it, and 10 parklets.
Yes, sir.
5 of those parklets are on Meridian and 5 are not. Councilmember Castema.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move that we allocate the parklets in the proportion of 6 on Meridian, 4 off Meridian.
So just to clarify that would mean that we'd have 5 on Meridian, or
6 on Meridian and 4.
But we've only got the lottery only produced 5 on Meridian. So
we had no more applicants than 5?
Correct.
We received 10 applications for the lottery this year. 5 of the businesses are located in the eligible area on Meridian. 5 of the businesses are located in the eligible area off Meridian. So what I would be looking for this evening is direction on...
Doesn't sound like much of a lottery if we have 10 parklets and 10 applicants.
That's correct.
Okay. I would modify the motion to say that the preferred allocation is 6 on Meridian, 4 off Meridian, or how would you say up to? I would say up to 6 and up to 4. I'm trying to understand this variation that we have here and still allow for it. I'm trying to look for the language to do that, because I think if you had 15 people apply, I think the proportion would be 6-4, would be fairly in line with what we have done in the past. We've had the majority of them on Meridian and then a minority of them off Meridian, and this maintains that type of proportion. However, if I have 5-5, obviously I'm not going to say that those other people off Meridian can't get them. So someone help me out here.
So I will volunteer to help. Up to 6 on Meridian. Any unallocated Meridian parklets could be used elsewhere in the permitted area.
I love it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Well, I'd still like to discuss.
We discuss after we get the second.
Sure, second.
Okay, discussion. Are you done, Councilmember Castleman?
That's it. I will let other people speak to this.
Councilmember Gilliam.
So if the parklet program ever grew and we had more than 10, I would like to, add or consider 6 on Meridian, capping it at 6 on Meridian, and the rest can be off. Just a thought.
I think that's what
he said.
Oh, okay. Well, then 100% I'm down on that.
It's getting late.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We now move on to our city manager's report.
So you have a study session next Tuesday, and the proposed items at this point are all planning related, land use zoning map related, one having to do with commercial zones, one having to do with mixed use zones, and one having to do with middle housing. All of them will be presentations. No action is requested at the study session. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council reports. Councilmember Adler.
Thank you. I'm going to try to not take a bunch of reporting about the travels that Councilmember King and I did to Washington, D.C. last week for the National League of Cities annual congressional city conference, and the opportunity that Councilmember King and I had to visit with our congressional delegation. I'll leave that to Councilmember King, but I will share that it was time well spent, and I'm very grateful that Council has a few years ago now made the decision to hire a federal lobbyist and to really take a look at opportunities that exist for the city to hopefully start receiving by way of application and various grants federal funding for various projects throughout our city. And it's really exciting to see some of the fruits of that investment, if you will, in labor. Certainly we learned earlier this year, thanks to Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, the city put in an application for federal funding for our Meeker Street project, and that project was chosen by Congresswoman Strickland as part of her congressionally directed spending, aka earmarks, for her overall projects that she chooses, about 25 a year. And the Meeker Street project was chosen and funded at about $850,000, which brought us to the finish line in funding for that project. So that was pretty significant. This year, or for fiscal year 2027, the city put forward an application, a request for the Fruitland Sidewalk Improvement Project to Congresswoman Strickland as well as Senator Cantwell for about $2.3 million, which this project would fund sidewalks from 9th Avenue Southwest to 7th Avenue Southwest on Fruitland. And it's a very large number, and it remains to be seen at what level of funding the Congresswoman and Congress will end up at alongside Senator Cantwell and her work, what level we will receive funding for. But this project, the Fruitland Sidewalk Improvement Project, was chosen as one of Congresswoman Strickland's projects for fiscal year 2027. So we're waiting to hear back from Senator Cantwell's office. We also have an opportunity to make a go at it with Senator Murray's office. We will see how those pan out. But again, very exciting, and just exceedingly grateful for Congresswoman Strickland's partnership and for seeing the value in the projects that we put forward. As part of our travels last week to Washington, D.C., we had the opportunity to meet with Congresswoman Strickland personally and talk about these projects and thank her for her support, and talk a little bit about, the importance, particularly with the Fruitland Sidewalk Improvement Project, and keeping our kids and families safe. I went to Fruitland. Sidewalks have been a challenge. Lack of sidewalks have been a challenge in that area for quite some time, and for us to come forward with this project and have her support is going to help us get there and make that area, make some transformational changes in that area. So it was a very successful trip. We also had the opportunity to meet with Senator Cantwell's staff and Senator Murray's staff and give them a preview of what we'll be applying for. And I think it's safe to say that the feedback was fairly positive from both of our senators' offices. So again, it's very exciting to have the federal partnership and seeing some of those federal dollars float to Puyallup. Thank you.
Thank you for your great work there, Councilmember. Councilmember King, since you were just referenced.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we just got back from our 5 days in Washington, D.C., meeting with our congressional members back there. And it was everything and more what Councilmember Adler just mentioned. In addition to the Fruit Loom Sidewalk project, we also asked for some additional funding to acquire additional data for our designated crisis responder that we have through our police department. And so we are asking for an additional funds there to acquire additional data over the next year. And hopefully we can make that a permanent position within the city. With that, all was good, and I was excited to also see the full delegation from the City of Federal Way and the City of Tacoma there, and I would like to encourage that our entire council make it a point to attend next year, as well as potentially maybe even this fall in Nashville. So it was a good event, and I can attest to that, and I would like to see our entire city there as well, including our city manager and perhaps even our chief. I think he could I think he could benefit there as well, at least meeting with our congressional members. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and have a great week.
Councilmember Castema.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to first kind of tell people about a person who testified here many times, Merv Swanson, recently passed away. He was 85. A very dear friend of mine in this community, in the northwest section of town, was a Boilermaker by trade. And if you'd ever been to his house, he had a very elaborate solar system with heat exchangers that he had built himself. Very elaborate, beautiful, I mean, very, very beautiful home, and very mechanically engineering oriented. And we used to talk a lot about technology at WSU here at the Puyallup Research Extension Center. And I had a startup business at one time that I used to talk with him about technology. But anyway, really miss him. And I just wanted to bring his name up because if any of you remember Merv Swanson, he again testified on behalf of his neighborhood a few times. Just keep him in your heart and mind. But I would like to address some of the comments that were given here in public comment about the very hateful letter, death threat, that in regards to Kenya Jones Lowell. When I was mayor, I made it very clear that we would expend all resources necessary to get to the bottom of this situation. We saw speech after speech of people condemning the integrity of this community and using that to characterize what people were like here. And I said, we're getting to the bottom of this. We're going to find out the individuals who did this. And at every step, I said to the city manager, I said to the police chief, don't stop. We continue forward. We're going to spend every resource necessary. If we have to have an allocation up here on the council to do so, we are going to get to the bottom of this. Now, for those that said this investigation was not thorough, I ask everyone in this community to get a hold of that report and read it. It's available. Just make a request to either member here, and we will get that to you. But let me just give you an idea of what took place. Reviewing of hundreds of hours of videotapes, going to court and getting subpoenas to get access to information we wouldn't otherwise be able to obtain, fingerprinting people, interviewing people, everyone from postal employees to commissioners themselves, all the extensive work that was done. But one of these individuals even requested one time that we go to the FBI. Now, I leave it up to our well-trained officers and investigators to make those decisions. But wouldn't you know, they did go to the FBI. And what was the FBI's conclusion? That Kenya Jones Lowell or someone on her behalf wrote that letter. And I would ask people to read that letter. It is one of the most abhorrent letters I have read. And I think that this mischaracterization, thinking that this city took that investigation somehow any less than absolutely seriously, is wrong. And I want to make that very clear, and I will continue to make that point very clear. Again, read the document. I think you, after reading that document, will come to the conclusion that the FBI did. I leave that to you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councilmember Castema especially in the character trait of, as a council, commissioning the city staff to do what needed to be done for the investigation. I don't know what's going on in the community, and I hope this doesn't create any form of divide, but I genuinely hope that people do our best to look for the best in one another and don't allow for any racism at all in our community. And I absolutely do not tolerate false accusations. And I don't know how else to state that. As for my committee reports, I am on the Puyallup Main Street Association board, and I'm very proud of the fact that they're going after the B&O tax relief B&O tax in order to help support all the great work for supporting our local businesses. It's a great way to invest back into the community, and I'm really proud of the city for going ahead with our $100,000 support for that, which will only actually cost us $25,000. I also want to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce for taking on the America 250 celebration, and I'm excited for what they're going to come back with in 2 weeks to let us know what they have planned and how we can better support that celebration. And I also want to applaud the city staff for all their hard work in investigating the Lahar boundaries, potential just readiness. And I'm really impressed with the fact that on April 23rd, we're going to have 7 jurisdictions with 6 school districts practice the Lahar walkout with 50,000 people. That's a huge undertaking. And so I just want to say good job to city staff. And I'm really proud of you guys. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Smolko.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a ton to say, but I do have just a brief statement since a couple of you have. I think that everything that's happened and has gone down and will continue to transpire over time means that we have to have some harder, more personal conversations with each other, with ourselves, with our family and friends, as neighbors, as parents, as people who love this city. I think that we have to ask what we have done, what is yet to be done to make Puyallup undoubtedly genuinely safe and welcoming, not just on a sign, but for every single person who lives here. I want Puyallup to be that place where people hear that something like this happened and go, no way, not in Puyallup. That's my goal for Puyallup. And I think we have everything it takes to be that city for the rest of its time on the planet. And I think that's all I have to say about that for now.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll touch on some of those comments. Public comment tonight. We had a few folks that are trying to, I think, continue to maintain that the findings, there's still a victim there. The victim really is the city of Puyallup, and those had to endure falsehoods. The victim isn't the individual. The victim is the city that had to endure false accusations. There's an old saying, be quick to listen, slow to speak. And I think we, as a council and stakeholders, need to be very slow to speak. What's the old saying, innocent until proven guilty. When these allegations came out, there were some folks, I think, that were quick to speak that this was actually assumed true. And it turns out that wasn't true. I think that's a sign of, we need to exercise more self-control and be careful because it can come back and bite. I think it became a political issue. We saw folks running for political office, echoing this kind of rhetoric to use for political advantage or gain. And so my hope is that people will be held accountable for that by just taking this talking points and assuming it to be true when it turned out it wasn't. And I think that's inappropriate and needs to be called out come election time if that should be attempted to try again. And then, the mantra that I think is, Puyallup is safe and welcoming. We don't need any more conversations about that. I think that implies that there's still some problems here. Are we perfect? No. We're all made up of humans. But as a whole, there's no systematic issue of racism and unwelcoming here in this city. So why we would continue to paint a picture that somehow it's not, to me, is compounding the problem. It's not a problem. So I resent the fact of more conversations. I say we get off of some of these tangents and actually just forget conversations about this issue. Just continue to be community and just drop the whole issue. This is nonsense. It's not the 1950s anymore. Those days are behind us, and there were some awful things that took place during those times, but those days are behind us. And so we need to move forward. Unless there's, tangible, measurable, seen, felt evidence, stuff that's going on, let's assume good intent and not make accusations of underlying problem. So that's my thoughts on that. And quite frankly, there's some that think that, the council's, being silent. Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm not done. I'm kind of assessing this. It's not over yet. Studying the report, finding out have we crossed every T and dotted every I, and is there more accountability? I don't know. But I'm not satisfied with letting this drop without setting new precedents that this, moving forward in the city of Puyallup. There's not going to be any of this nonsense going on unless there's a really serious problem that can be documented and verified. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I do believe that this will send a shift moving forward for good in our city, that we're not going to allow assumptions that evil is there unless proven. And when it's proven, then we're going to hold people accountable. But until then, we're not going to go there. So anyway, I want to say hi to Marla. I did say hi, Marla. She did come in. I guess a mutual friend, is not doing very well. And so our prayers are going out with that person, Marla. Thanks for letting us know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. There's a lot in those comments tonight. Regarding the death threat letter, I find this whole event unfortunate. When it first came out, it was appalling. And it's hard to wait. So I don't feel that there's any problem with people reacting to it, denouncing the letter. At that point in time, we didn't know whether the letter was factual or not. So I don't think that speaking out is a bad thing. We don't want that sort of thing in Puyallup. We'd all be upset if it was a true thing. So as time has passed and it's become clear that it wasn't a real threat, the whole community has been hurt, wounded by this whole process, and it's so regrettable and so unfortunate, and I just encourage us to try and put it all in our rearview mirror. There are disparities in in income and wealth and that come up through generations, and some of that is the result of some racial things generations ago, and they perpetuate themselves across generations. I think we, as a council, could be a little more sensitive to those kinds of things. In the scriptures it talks about problems being visited on generations and generations. I can't quote the scripture, but it, the sins of the fathers will be visited on the sons for many generations, and I'm sensitive to that, and I hope we can be forgiving and of each other and find our way clear to trying to put this unfortunate event in our rearview mirror and move forward in lockstep, and we need to engage with some of the folks that expressed themselves here tonight, and whether we agree with them or not, I think it's in our community's best interest to try and tamp down these kind of divisive issues. So that's kind of my thoughts tonight on some of what I've heard. The other thing I'd like to mention is I have been serving on the Unified Regional Authority on Homelessness, chaired by Chair Hitchens of the Pierce County Council, and I've decided to step down from that, and I wrote a letter to Chair Hitchen that I'd like to share with you. I just said at this time my mayoral duties are absorbing more of my available time, and I am afraid that my participation in the elected leadership group may be giving folks the wrong impression regarding the likelihood that Puyallup will join the Unified Regional approach. I am skeptical about the ability of a shape-style organization to have meaningful impact on our homelessness. I met with Puyallup City Manager Steve Kirkley today. Once the proposed ILA or MOU has been created and is ready for consideration by the City of Puyallup, please feel free to send that proposed ILA or MOU to Steve, and he can then brief me and the entirety of the Puyallup City Council on the proposal. So I've been representing the council to some degree on that committee, and I just don't feel like the direction they're going is going to be fruitful, and so I've withdrawn, and if somebody would be inclined to take my place on that, I'm welcome to cede that, but I don't think it's in, I've chosen to step down, so that is my report on my Unified Regional Approach Committee. If there are no further comments, I will declare this meeting adjourned.